this changed my life for the worse. I'm going to show you how to hack your brain, right? Basically, I want to show you how you could double your brain power. So effectively, you could read twice as fast, your focus could be double, you could remember twice as much. I mean, effectively learn anything in half the time, any subject or any skill. If we're going to spend the next 75 minutes together or so, and I was a magical genie and I could snap my fingers and help you to be able to, your focus, your habits, your mindset, your concentration, your ability to read, your ability to recall things. But let me ask you a question. How we read it, has that changed at all? How we focus on it, retain it? So the amount of information is going like this. This gap creates what? Stress, right? Anxiety. They call it information fatigue syndrome. You're going to hear a lot about this. It's a compression of leisure time, more sleeplessness, right? Higher blood pressure, or even if you have time to enjoy yourself, you can't enjoy it because your mind's still like multitasking. So we're going to talk about how do you maintain your concentration in a world full of distraction. It's tough, right? How many people feel like, you want to be logical sometimes, but you get your mind gets hijacked by your heart sometimes, right? Especially the emotions that get in the way of you learning, like anxiety and stress. Because when you're stressed, you create cortisol and adrenaline, which is really good for fight or flight, but it's not good if you need to study. It's not good if you need to give a presentation in front of a group of people. And so we'll talk about learning states. This is what the research is showing. Within 48 hours of learning something once, 80% of it is gone within 2 days. Isn't that crazy? And you might be concerned, like, how do you learn new things built on like prior knowledge, right? We could talk about that. The reason why I find that we can together collectively boost your intelligence almost 100%, like double your brain power, is not because I'm so great, it's because you're so great. It's just you weren't taught how to do this. I always think it's kind of interesting when you look back at school, a lot of, especially when you think about high school, elementary school, and junior high, middle school, a lot of classes on what to learn, right? Math, important classes, math, history, science, Spanish, all classes on what to learn, but how many classes were there on how to learn? Like how to think, how to focus, how to concentrate, how to really listen, how to study, right? How to read faster, the kind of things that you want to know that would make your life easier, right? How to remember things. I always thought it should have been the 4th R in school. They teach you 3 R's in school. What are the 3 R's? Reading, writing, and what? Arithmetic, right? The 4th R, what about remembering, right? What about recall? What about retention, right? Socrates says there is no learning without remembering. And you know this because if you forgot half of everything you know, how effective would you be? If you forgot half the people, half the words, half of everything that you studied, but what if you could double that amount? The key here is this. Like, I want you to think about a subject that you're having a challenge in or something you really want to master. It could be marketing, it could be Mandarin, it could be music, it could be martial arts. Think about a subject or skill, because I want to make this extremely, extremely practical. So here's what I want you to remember. Now, when so children learn so well because they play and they get involved in things. But the challenge is when we grow older, we stop playing, right? When we grow older, we stop playing. And I don't think that's true. I think it's actually the opposite. I think we grow older because we stop playing. When your body moves, your brain grooves, right? There's a connection between your brain and your body. There's actually a study done at Oxford University saying jugglers actually have bigger brains because the information alone is not memorable. Information combined with emotion becomes a long-term memory, especially when you understand the brain anatomy part. But going back to this, when it comes to emotion, what was the primary, when you think about school in the past, like think about high school. What was the primary emotion you felt back in high school? Because here's the thing, you know your physiology affects your psychology. That you could control the way you feel. It's not up. Are people sometimes the same way? They just kind of react. They react to the weather, or they react how people are treating them. They react how the economy is doing, right? Visible. So when you think about what you want to learn faster, and my promise is to you is to be able to give enough brain hacks to double your brain power, to be able to supercharge your intelligence, I want you to remember this. Be fast. Write this down. Be fast. It's an acronym. The B is believe. Because if you believe you can or believe you can, either way, what? You're right. Who said that? Henry Ford, right? Henry Ford said that. If you believe you can or believe you can't, either way, you're right. Now, what's a belief? Actually, let me show you what a belief is. Some of you are thinking, I can't imagine it. If you can't imagine it, imagine you could imagine it. Where was the limitation if there was one? In your mind. And you're like, well, Jim, I didn't have a belief on how far I could turn. How many beliefs do you have? How many beliefs do you think you have? Yeah, millions, countless beliefs, right? But here's the thing, we're not conscious of those beliefs, right? But here's what you want to do and understand, that everything, there's a success formula I subscribe to. I believe it's this: be, do, have, share. In that sequence, because the syntax is very important here. Be, do, have, share. Now, it's kind of interesting because some people try to reverse engineer this, or you've heard this before, right? Where somebody wins the lottery, all of a sudden they're at the have stage and they have millions of dollars. What happens after years? What happens to their financial situation? Right, it's all gone, right? Because they were given, or they have millions of dollars, but starting with the B, they were never a millionaire. Does that make sense? Now, in order to be, do, have, share, in order to have anything to share with the world, you need to be able to do something. Is that true? Right? Because it's not just the law of attraction, it's the law of action, right? You're taking action on things. And so, in order to be able to do something, you need a belief that allows you to do that behavior. Okay? So, for example, if for somebody, let's say that they have trouble remembering names, and I teach you how to remember names, which I'm going to show you exactly how I remember people's names. If you have a belief, a sense of certainty around this idea that you're not good with names, what's going to happen? You're not going to remember. I remember I was preparing to run a marathon, and I was reading this book on training, and one of the chapters was on the psychology of running a marathon, and it said this verbatim, because I'm a memory expert. It said this: your brain is a supercomputer, and your self-talk is the program it will run. So if you tell yourself you're not good at remembering names, you will not remember the name of the next person you meet because you program your supercomputer not to. Does that make sense? Because here's the thing, a lot of times people go and they come to me and say, Jim, I'm too old, or this runs in my family, or I'm just not smart enough, or I have a horrible memory. But I always tell people, if you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. Right? If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. If you argue for your limits, they're yours, right? And so you always wanted to monitor your self-talk. Always monitor your self-talk, because here's why. Your mind is always eavesdropping on your self-talk, right? A lot of people who've been through adversity, the most difficult time of their life, and they've come through it, and they wouldn't wish that situation on anybody, and yet they found value in it. They found a gift in it, right? They found a deeper meaning. They found a mission. They found some kind of strength from it that they wouldn't have had outside of that. And here's the thing. You could go 50% further in your health, in your relationships, right? In your grades, right? But it's having that belief that says you can do it. Because here's what you always want to remember. All behavior is belief-driven. All behavior is belief-driven. In order to do a new behavior, you need an empowering belief that allows you to do that behavior. With great responsibility comes great power. Yeah, that's worth writing down. With great responsibility comes great power. That when we take responsibility for something, we have great power to make things better. Does that make sense? A lot of them actually move away from responsibility and discipline, right? They don't want to have to do something because that's the opposite of freedom. That's a jail. But here's what I noticed. If you can't get yourself to do the things you need to do, whatever that is, then that's a prison. Because in actuality, discipline equals freedom, right? Now, when you're disciplined, it gives you the freedom and the responsibility to be able to do the things. Because if you don't take responsibility for something, the ability to responsibility, then you can't do anything. Then you're a thermometer again. You take the responsibility and then you get the benefit. State, and I'm saying this because it came up in terms of how people feel about something. And I think if there's one thing to take responsibility for, be responsible for how you feel. Does that make sense? Because all learning is state dependent. And we found that the fastest readers actually have the best comprehension. Do you know why? Because they have the best focus. Watch this, your brain is this incredible supercomputer. It is magnificent, right? But when you read, you feed this supercomputer one word at a time. Metaphorically, you're starving your mind. And here's the thing, if you don't give your brain the stimulus it needs, it'll seek entertainment elsewhere in the form of distraction.